Welcome to another episode of Kurt's Angle podcast. Today, I've got a special guest that's going to be talking about all the things happening regarding WWE and their plans to take over Japan, shall we say, with the rumoured of the WWE Performance Centre in Japan and the NXT Japan. There's nobody better to have on this show to discuss all this than my guest today. It's Big Paws on a Puppet's JPQ from No Particular Angle. JPQ, how's it going?
Good man. I'm doing really well. I'm excited to be here. Long time coming. You and I trying to put some time on the calendar, and it couldn't work out any better with some of the news we have coming out of Japan with regards to WWE and their global takeover. So I'm happy to be here. Happy to talk to you about it. And yeah, how you doing, man?
Yeah, really good, thanks, man. Just obviously life's been busy, and then it was just trying to find like what I wanted to do with Kurt's Angle, make it a bit different to what I'm doing with Jamie and Callum with the ringside and stuff, and
Hmm.
just trying to have my niche. And I was speaking to Mags of all people, and Mags was like, I was been having a think. He was like, how about? Because I was just spitballing some like ideas of like formats of the show and stuff. And he was like, well, you've got Kurt's Angle. Why don't you play on the angle side of it and just try and pick a big news topic or something and base that around it rather than just let's recap everything. Let's talk about all the different shows coming up. So yeah, so it's Kurt's Angle on NXT Japan with JPQ, and really excited, mate. It's like you said, been a long time coming. I think when was the Brainbuster charity show we did?
I think that was August.
Yeah, man, and it's been a while, and
Been a while.
we clicked from then speaking about British and Japanese wrestling with the puddle jumping stuff. So hopefully we can do that when our time frees up a little bit more. But no, really happy to you being on, and yeah, thanks for coming. I know it's only early where you are in America, so what is it like 6:15?
Yeah, it's 6:15 here, which is good. I mean, gotta get the day started,
Yeah.
Too many people sleep in too much. It's good to get up, get the blood moving, and then find your way onto a UK podcast. I say that every day. Every day, my goal is to get on a UK podcast before 7 a.m. So happy to be here, my man.
And here we are, here we are. So, what was your first like thoughts? There's been so much talk happening regarding WWE. You've seen them take over the UK essentially, where some companies have closed. Whether or not that's directly or indirectly because of WWE, that's up for debate. I don't think as much, but there's been an impact, and they've taken a lot of the best talent that's been available.
Hmm.
And same with Europe as well. Like the European wrestlers, they've been incorporated into the NXT UK brand. There was the reports some months ago that before Bushiroad purchased Stardom, WWE made an offer to purchase Stardom. They also made an offer to purchase NOAH, and both of them got rebuffed because they didn't have any plans for those brands. They just wanted to get them out there and absorb everything they've got, essentially, monopolizing a little bit. What
Hmm.
was your thoughts, like, especially as a massive Stardom fan as you are, when you heard WWE have tabled an offer to purchase Stardom? What was your initial reaction?
You get a little scared, I think is a fair way of looking at it. Yeah, so the report that came out a couple months ago was that Rossi was entertaining a meeting from WWE in which he was going to sell Stardom, and part of that was on top of the cash he was going to get inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. I don't know if you knew, like, if you saw that or not, but
Yeah.
it'd be hilarious to see Rossi going in the WWE Hall of Fame when he has like no contact whatsoever, or no connection with WWE whatsoever. But I'm glad it didn't happen because I think Stardom specifically was just too popular. I think it's the most polished of all the Joshi brands right now out in Japan, and for them to be the ones that sold initially to NXT Japan, I think that would have been foolhardy on Rossi's part. I think that would have done some detrimental business in Japan with regards to the Joshi scene. So I'm glad they were able to kind of stay out of it. Um, and now they're in Bushi Road. Overall, NXT Japan or WWE Japan, whatever they decide to go with in this training center, I think ultimately it's an okay thing. I think, and this isn't a knock on the UK scene, this isn't a knock on anywhere where they go globally with WWE, but really, I think Japan and the how culture centric they are, and the way they kind of like take care of their own in a sense.
Yeah.
There's a reason WWE hasn't been able to get there yet, and now that they're going there, unlike UK, only reason I bring up the UK is because it's like relevant, right? Like
Yeah,
it
yeah,
just
no, of
happened.
course, of course.
Yeah, it only happened in the last couple of years. It's like they can't come in and establish a WWE Japan and just kind of take off the way they did in the UK, buying up contracts, buying up the freelancers, buying up promotions, and then essentially starting their own brand. They need to kind of walk into it a little bit more. They got to get their feet wet in the pool before they learn to swim. And by doing a performance center, it gives them an opportunity, a lot like in India, right? A lot like in China, these like Asian markets, and I don't know why. Maybe it's a cultural thing. I can't like explain it, but I think what ends up happening is that they gotta have to get their feet wet. They kind of have to prove that they're not going to come in and destroy the ecosystem of the wrestling scene in that country. And once they lull everybody into a false sense of security, that's when they'll come over the top and bang out every promotion in in Japan. But for now, they're kind of playing nice, it seems.
Do you think there should be like it is really different? There's a lot of talent that are under contract with places like Dragon Gate, New Japan, All Japan, hell even Big Japan, DDT, Stardom. They've got their own contracts, and it's when they're coming up available. Obviously, in the UK, they didn't have that. I believe the only place with guaranteed contracts is a company called the Wrestling Agency, which is in cooperation with like Wrestle Talk and things like that, where they've got a couple of guys under their contracts, like Rampage Brown, they've got Nathan Cruz, they've got a couple of others that they're offering like scholarships to young talent and stuff just to make sure that they can just focus on professional wrestling.
Mm.
So when they come in, obviously they've just got the pick of all the top talent because they haven't had somewhere to be financially secure like New Japan. What's What's your thoughts on we've just seen with Lance Archer? Lance Archer just cleared off. Like, how is it going to change the landscape of Japanese professional wrestling? Because yes, there's the loyalty there, and that's been a big thing. Even if they're not under like a guaranteed contract, a lot of places are like, no, this is my company, I'm staying here. But now with such a juggernaut with WWE, where with their endless resources, could that impact the way of business for these companies? Like, are they going to have to start offering out more guaranteed contracts rather than tour-to-tour contracts? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're going to see consolidation, first and foremost. Not companies go out of business, which is ironic to say on a day when Wrestle-1 literally goes out of business. But it is one of those things where I expect to see some consolidation, especially on the Joshi side. I think that's where you're going
Yeah,
to see most impact. And the reason is because we have a lot of like, splinter promotions, right?
yeah,
Whether that be Wave or Actress or Oz Academy or, you run down the list. Outside of like your big ones, your Ice Ribbons, you could make a case for for Marvelous right now with everything they're doing. Obviously,
yeah.
Stardom now that they've Bushiroad acquisition. You know, these little independent women promotion things. I think those are the ones that get eaten up first,
Yeah.
right? Not a tremendous amount of value towards WWE because a lot of it is younger talent. And that's the part that like I think people aren't focused so much on is WWE has no interest in the 14 through 19-year-olds that you
Yeah.
find in Joshi wrestling. They're interested in the 24 through the 30, right? That's why we see people like Sareee being picked up and being shipped over to America, is because they're looking for that mid 20s, mid 2025, somewhere in that range, talent. And you have some of those people. To get those people, you're going to have to buy up those little promotions, and we're going to see a consolidation, I think, of these promotions
No,
if
I,
WWE ever really wants to, set up a shop. I think we're a little far out, but if they want to set up a shop, I think that's where you say it.
yeah, no, 100%. I think they will be quite aggressive. Like Triple H is clearly a fan of Japanese wrestling, anyways. With Obviously, he brought Nakamura into the company. Hideo Itami, obviously we prefer him as Kenta. And then you've had the likes of Kairi Sane, Asuka, Io Shirai, Akira Tozawa. Could this be a sign to come? Because people thought Shinsuke would never leave New Japan,
Hmm.
and he did to go to America. Now, if you've got a company where they're like, hey, we'll bring you across to America for some shows, however, you can predominantly work these Japan shows as well, so you can still see your family, like your immediate family, and things like that. Could you see more people where they may have been disgruntled in the company? For example, Minoru Suzuki. It was always up in the air what he's going to do with his career. If he's happy with New Japan, like, what's your thoughts on the possibilities of these big names potentially going? Like, depending on who they get back of house as well. Like with Wrestle-1 closing, my immediate thoughts is surely they're going to do everything they can get to get the Great Muta as part of that staff.
That's right.
And somebody so well respected, as well as the likes of Nakamura talking to talent, is is there anybody in particular that you could see WWE going, or you wouldn't expect, like you'd expect them to try and pursue from, like, say, Stardom?
Stardom, I don't think so. I think if I was WWE coming in, so you mentioned Minoru, it's interesting, right? Because like yeah, you're right that Triple H has a good way of kind of balancing the fandom and the talent and smoke screening the fact that like oh we're gonna take care of the Minoru Suzuki's of the world. You know we're not the bad guys. We're gonna come in and we're going to play nice within the culture. I don't know how much I buy that. You know yeah, can they make things better? Sure. Um, are there a lot of with a lot of these splinter promotions? Are there a lot of things that don't happen behind the scenes, like people getting paid, working conditions, safety
Yeah.
concerns, all that type of stuff? Sure. There's yes, you clean up a lot of that stuff, and WWE looks pretty good. For me, I think and I was talking with JD over at the Red Leaf Retrocast about this earlier in the week. Um, I don't know if WWE. The hardest thing about both on the men or the women's side in Japan is, they have a certain type of style.
Yeah.
And is WWE going to stay firm in allowing or training up and comers in a style that's more representative of WWE or more representative of Japanese wrestling, right? And that's the big unknown, right? Like if
Yeah.
they can bring in like a Kagetsu as a trainer and she's teaching the ways of Joshi and they're training in the style in which, the country is accustomed to seeing, well that's a very interesting thing for their performance center. If you bring in, a somebody like a
Obviously,
Taguchi.
Mika. I can see Mika and Sendai Girls being a big part of
Oh
this.
yeah.
They've clearly got they've got that Japanese relationship with Mika, anyways, and it was when they've been really picky of where these NXT UK stars can work. I remember going to the Sendai Girl show in the UK, and WWE allowed Kaylee Ray to work the show. They allowed Tony Storm to face Miko on the show as well.
Hmm.
So I can see that being a big factor. Like, obviously, Sendai Girls and Fight Club Pro, Fight Club being partially owned by Trent Seven.
Right.
They've got those dots there, and I think that will be a big route with the way they'll go for some of the Joshi wrestlers.
Hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, Kurt. I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised to see as big of a move as WWE buying out Ice Ribbon.
Yeah.
I think with where Ice Ribbon is right now, they haven't done a good job at all of building up their undercard.
Yeah.
And really, all you're doing when you're buying Ice Ribbon is you're buying the contracts of like the top four people of like Fujimoto, number one, and then Maya Yukihi. And I think Maya Yukihi, if they ever decide to set up the promotion itself in Japan,
Yeah.
WWE Japan, that's somebody that you can build around, and you can have her versus Sareee as your two top performers. They don't even need to come across, the ocean. They can just hang out in Japan. Sareee versus Maya will produce.
Yeah.
Will put people in the stands. Ice Ribbon's kind of on the decline. They have been for about a year now, in my opinion.
Okay.
So for them to come in and take like the number two Joshi promotion and make it WWE, man, it fits. It fits the story a little bit, doesn't it? Uh, so I think we're gonna see something like that. I would also tell you that I don't think you're gonna see a lot of people doing business with WWE. Um, I would be hard pressed if it came out that if WWE set up a performance center and was starting to buy up contracts of the freelancers and people as they were leaving different promotions, if you saw those promotions reach out and want to try to work with WWE, I
Yeah.
think that they would be met, with a big stone wall in a sense. I think Japanese promotions, will push back against the WWE machine with regards to exchanges and collaborations and things like that. It'll be a real interesting dynamic if it ever does take off.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the only company in the UK that probably was like, we're not really interested, would have been Rev Pro because they
Hmm.
didn't want to give up their relationship with New Japan.
Right.
Whereas everybody else was like, hey, yeah, let's please be friends. And it did change. Like, it's, I think Japan's so much bigger than the UK, anyways. There's a big possibility for Japan to produce matches that haven't been seen before or haven't been seen in a very long while. Whereas with NXT UK, we've seen Bate and Dunn, we've seen um, Dunn and Walter, we've seen Walter and Devlin in all these different promotions around UK, Ireland, and Europe. I don't think that'll be one of the factors with Japan. And it's interesting that you said regarding the performance center and how are they going to do it? Are they going to do it like a WWE thing, or are they going to make it very much dojo, instill that like toughness, never give up attitude that the dojos doing, like employ?
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think to the structure of it? Do you think they're going to be sticking to the traditional Japanese style of having these weight divisions, or do you think they're going to flip the script, go completely different, and be like, hey, you know what? We're just going to do everything that these companies aren't doing.
Oh, well, you know, that's the $1 million question, right? I think WWE can't. Like, I think they have a formula. I think it's just rinse and repeat where they set it up in the on the globe, right? Whatever country they decide to go to next. Japan's a little different. You think you would see a little bit of a change, but I'm hard pressed to believe that's the case. Like, I think that they're so big. They're so global.
Yeah,
There's such an understanding that as a corporation, they transcend whatever country they're working in, and
yeah,
where they may be a little nuanced to kind of get the door open. The formula that they trust is the one that has gotten them as far as it's gotten them over the last 40, 50 years. So I would tell you we're going to see, you know, maybe not so much of a defined 205 live slash junior heavyweight division as than a heavyweight division,
yeah,
although I think there will be that separation. Um, and then I think we will see like women's matches incorporated on the same card as men's matches. It's
yeah.
not unheard of in Japan. It's just not one that you typically promote. But I would imagine that WWE Japan is going to run a system a lot like NXT UK or NXT or the main roster, where everybody's going to be blended in the same schedule or on the same roster, and we're just going to build the storylines out because ultimately people in Japan love WWE. Like it's
Yeah.
not like they hate or they have disdain for WWE. The business on the business side they might, but the fans, they gravitate towards WWE. Clearly, there's a market there for them because the fans want them, and that's why their eyes are in that direction. Um, my guess is they're not going to change much. They're not going to change much. They're going to keep it, pretty consistent with where they have it in other parts of the country.
Okay. Do you think the structural, how it'll be presented in terms of so commentators? You have a couple of companies where they'll do the Japanese and English commentators.
Mhm.
Do you think, in terms of promos, for it to WWE like it to be everything mainstream? Like they, over with NXT UK, they've just got to deal with BT Sports where they're getting aired like 3 times a week, and that's like a massive channel over here in the UK. They've just picked up basically Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and now NXT UK. If they was to do something similar with NXT Japan, would you want to see them employ maybe like subtitles, or would you want English commentators to explain the promo? Like, how would you want it so more like say the Western, so more the fans in America, in Europe, in the UK? Would you want that translation there, or would you want it a bit like say Stardom or New Japan if people don't choose to use English commentators?
I think that I think they're going to have both. I think that part of them going to Japan, just like part of them going to NXT, is bringing that world into the universe that is the established WWE market. So I think that not only would you have a Japanese feed with a lot of Japanese centric type of motifs in the background, I think that you're also going to have an English commentary team that's going to drive primarily the English market, right, with regards to how they showcase Japanese wrestling. Maybe it could be somebody like Kai and Tai, right,
Okay.
coming in and playing the commentary role and kind of doing the bridge of English. But I would be surprised if they just whitewash it, right, and they bring in two people who are white, in a sense, and they present the Japanese side, and maybe they bring in a commentary that has Japanese lineage. I would,
Potentially Funaki.
yeah, you could do Funaki for sure, and it's so maybe something like that. Maybe they go out and they find somebody in English commentary. Maybe they go out and get like a Chris Charlton. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like lock him up from New Japan because he's working on like a part-time contract or whatever, and they play that game. Kind of like the Nigel McGuinness
Yeah.
of Japan in that sense. I can't imagine. Although I would like this. I would like if they decide to go get a TV contract in Japan. I would love to see how the Japanese show would compare to like a WWE network special from Japan. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like it's those two types of things that I'm interested with. So,
So
yeah.
will you be checking it out? Will you be giving
Oh
it a
yeah.
chance? Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Because you see a lot of people, they get very precious in wrestling, and
Mhm.
you've got it here in the UK where a lot of people despise WWE because of what they think done to the UK division, and there had been closures and stuff like that. But a lot of it was because a lot of the companies in the UK were already in the red. They were all they were struggling quite badly with the finances to everything, and I think once some of their bigger talents had disappeared, then they couldn't justify doing the shows because they'd take even more of a hit. Maybe it's it's an interesting one to say the least. I'd be really interested to see how it'll go. I think it'll be interesting to see how they'd shape the roster. Are they just going to go for Japanese? Are they going to start looking at different Asian demographics to be part of this roster? A bit like how we've done with NXT UK, incorporating Ireland. We've got Germany, Russia, Austria, France, Italy. We've got all sorts from there. What other, if they did expand and brought in different Asian company like countries, who do you think could be picked in that bunch? Obviously, I can see China.
It's got to be China, right? I mean, just the market's too big.
Yeah,
Like they've teased the India side, and I think they would like to go that route. It's tough, you know what I mean? Because there's like a geopolitical type of thing you have to pay attention to too. I don't know the working relationships between like Japan and China, or China and India, or
yeah,
Thailand and Japan. I think ultimately the idea would be to have like a regional zone of WWE.
yeah,
Or maybe it's like a headquarter for like their, Asian Pacific area, something along those lines. Um, and then maybe you have all like the little individuals underneath, and they all come together for showcases and things like that. I think we're years away from that.
yeah.
But if you were to say, where do you think they would head if they were going to team up? I would imagine China, because the market's just too big not to want to explore a little deeper on WWE side.
Yeah, and you've seen, obviously, going back to Wrestle-1, they work with OWE, Oriental Wrestling Entertainment. Obviously, you have like Shima, T-Hawk, El Lindemann, they work for Wrestle-1. And if we are thinking WWE may absorb a lot of Wrestle-1, there's a lot to be said. I think it'd be amiss if they didn't look, because the Chinese scene does seem to be picking up quite a bit. Obviously, they had the Chinese tryouts where they picked up Jiro Kuroshiro, was it?
Yes, yes.
From Wrestle-1, they picked him up from those tryouts. So they've they're clearly trying to monopolize the full entire wrestling world, I guess.
Hmm.
Is there anybody that you'd want to see that transition where they may have been in New Japan or Japan, and it's like, you know what, I wouldn't mind seeing them in a fresh, in like something new, like a different environment, just to have all these different matches.
Right. I'll be honest with you. I think it's Maya Yukihi from Ice Ribbon. I think
Okay.
that's the number one for me, and here's why. She is a bona fide superstar. She is, I'll tell you, I mean, besides being Maya All Belts last year for Ice Ribbon and Oz Academy, where she was holding like 5 different titles,
Yeah.
she's got the Western look. She's someone that you can build around. She has great signature and finisher moves. She's an ace in a sense, right?
Yeah.
And she has no body right now that she can feud with, because Ice Ribbon has pretty much put everybody in front of her, and she's beaten them. She's gone to other Joshi promotions, and she's beaten their top stars.
Yeah.
She is like a little Ric Flair in the sense of her superstardom potential. She would benefit the most from signing a WWE contract and being the face of WWE Japan in Japan. And I
Yeah.
think that would probably be where I would want them to head. New Japan, All Japan, they're so established. They have such history and prestige behind everything that they're doing, that it would be hard pressed for me to believe that, out of respect,
Yeah.
those wrestlers would jump ship so soon. I think it happens more on the Joshi side, and I think it starts with Maya.
Okay. Like for me, like going back to like the Sendai stuff, like when I hadn't really seen too much of Sendai, only when they'd been on like a couple of the shows here in the UK. But when I went to the Sendai Girls, like you've you've got Charlie Evans and Millie McKenzie from the UK, anyways. Millie turned down a deal, I believe, because she wanted to do more stuff in like Japan, and
Right.
she's so obviously so close with Sendai. So if there was that sort of bit like progress, where hey, you can still do your shows, but these are going to be our talent now, essentially. I think that'd be a good way for them to get Medusa Complex in Millie McKenzie and Charlie Evans, where they could work NXT UK, they can work NXT Japan, and it's giving these people freedom to be working in all these different markets that achieve some of their goals, I'm guessing. But I'd really like to see Dash Chisako. I'd like to see her go across. I was a big fan of hers. Hardy Katrina as well. I think that's somebody else they could use to utilize the NXT UK and NXT Japan. I'm surprised they've not tried getting Hardy yet. She
Yeah.
seems to be one of the big female stars left from that was born in the UK. And like with Mika, like everybody knows about Mika, like her, the prestige that comes with her name. There's so many different foundations that they can go with, and again with the crop of talent they've already got. Do you think we'll see Shinsuke go over? Do you think Shinsuke maybe have a stint in NXT Japan, because he's not really doing much on the main roster?
I think he could. I think him and Finn both could play. I think Cesaro would be a great spot for him over
Yeah,
there. Um, yeah, I think he might. The thing is, I also think that he loves America. I think
mm,
there's a reason that he left New Japan and he came across, and he hasn't really looked back, and it's because I think he enjoys what America has to offer with regards to the spoils compared to Japan, and
yeah,
that's not like a better than, it's just a different, right? and I think he's really gravitating towards the American culture. And you know, there's something to be said for that. You know, the dude was a catch prize shooter. You know what I mean? As well as, you know, he did the catch shoot for during the Enochiism in New Japan, beating up on MMA fighters and all that type of crap. So he's kind of earned his stripes in a sense to get the hell out, in some form or fashion. So yeah, do I think he would come over and do an extended run? Absolutely. Do I think that he's going to be like a name that worth building around? I don't think so, because I think he's a little on the older side, and I think he's probably more on his way out the door than he is being able to establish himself as like a number one in a new promotion once they set up.
Yeah.
Uh, to your point about Sendai Girls, Chi Chi over there, Chihiro Hashimoto, 4 years in the
She's the
business.
world champion she at the moment.
Yes.
Yep.
She's a stud, you
Yeah.
know. She's only 4 years into her career. She started a little later. She's 27 years old, and she was trained by Meiko. So there's a lot that they can do with her. There's a lot they can do with Sendai Girls in general. With WWE, obviously it's the one that everybody assumes will be like converted
Yeah.
when if and when they set up an actual promotion out there, and I agree that they will be. A lot of good talent in there. I think Chi Chi's somebody that can come out and really be, a standout for them early, kind of be the face. Her, Sareee, and maybe Maya. I
Yeah.
think you got to win there. I think you got three people in their early to mid 20s or mid to late 20s with some years underneath their belts, and that ain't a bad way to start, man. It really isn't.
No, like if they really wanted to do this, like for example, I was at the UK tournament when the title got announced, and you had Tommy End who'd just wrestled his last match on the indie scene in Progress against Jimmy Havoc, then travelled down to Blackpool, up to Blackpool, and faced then Neville, obviously now known as Pac. So they capitalised on that. We've had Finn Balor come over for a couple of matches, and it seems like he's going to be doing the NXT UK stuff going forward for a little bit. We've got some tapings coming up in Coventry in the next couple of weeks or something. It's like 2 days worth of tapings, but then that'll lead it all the way up to the end of April for Takeover Dublin. So on that schedule where it's like, hey, look, we'll fly over to Japan. We've got 2 days worth of TV. You fly back and do what you need to do for your main like homes, NXT, NXT UK, Raw, SmackDown, things like that. What do you like? If WWE wanted to, which they could do some serious damage, I think, like with those that are known from Japan. Obviously, you mentioned Finn Balor. You've got Shinsuke Nakamura. We've got Akira Tozawa, like who's huge in Dragon Gate. You've got Kushida, and just the women alone, like the ones what we've mentioned, and the addition of like Sareee. But you've got Io Shirai, Kairi Sane. You've got Asuka as well. And then that's not looking at people like Tony Storm and Piper Niven, who have also like set their names out there.
Sure.
The club, like that could be one way to stick it to New Japan if they really wanted to. Like
Yeah.
have Styles, Anderson, Gallows out there. What do like a little bit of fantasy, I guess. Like
Sure.
from the people that you could see go there that we've discussed, or some of the people that are on the different rosters, like what would you want to see? Like it's NXT Japan. Might not even be a Japan tournament like the UK one. It might just be the first NXT Japan showcase, and then we'll do a tournament afterwards.
Right.
It's a showcase. Who you got? Like, what matches would you want to see? What talent would you use from the different rosters? How would you make the biggest splash in the Japan scene if you used to WWE?
Gotcha. Well, first of all, I think Brock, number one.
Okay.
You know, I think you got it because he's got the respect for Japan,
Yeah.
and he doesn't, again, just like his makeshift program or runs that he goes on now. He doesn't need to be there all the time,
Yep.
but if he wants to do like a 3 month stint over there to kind of establish them, I think he would be game for that. You know, with everything that he's done with regards to his history over there. So if he came over as like the first champion in a sense, right?
Okay.
I think that would go over big with the Japanese audience, and then have like some homegrown talent through the Japanese Performance Center who's just some brick shit house beat them. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like in at the end of the story arc, get the over on Brock, and then now you've got an established star out there to build around. I think that would be smart. That would be number
Who
one.
who would you work with Brock to begin with then? So he's on this first show.
Right.
Who's his opponent?
It's so tough, you know. It's so tough because there's, you know, you would assume it would be some type of there would be some Japanese talent, right? Um,
Suzuki.
it could be Suzuki. I could see Suzuki coming in. I just don't think Suzuki's not going to be freelance. I don't think he'll sign a WWE contract.
Okay.
You know, I think 50, 50 years and change. I think he's having a lot of fun on the independent scene. I don't foresee a situation in which could they get him on a one-off? Hell yeah. Could
Yeah.
we get Brock versus? Hell yeah. I would be all about that. I just don't think that Minoru has any interest in signing with and being exclusive to one company. It just never was his MO. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so
Okay.
I'd be hard pressed on that. But maybe like a Finn, although we saw that in Japan already. I'm thinking maybe like I think it's got to be somebody out of the performance center. I think they
Yeah.
got. I think we're probably about a year or two out from an actual promotion, which gives us
Okay.
some time. On the women's side, I would love to see someone like Bailey go over and play to the culture, be an ambassador, be the women's champion, and put on good highly executable matches. You know, no Karen gimmick. She
Hmm.
can go over as Bailey, and the Smiley Friends and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, Sasha has interest in the culture as well. But I think you put Bailey over there and let her work with the Mayas of the world, or make a Chi Chi and all these people. I think that would be a good way of kind of or bridging the gap between the two.
That'd be an interesting one. Like Bailey wasn't one that I'd thought of. Obviously, Sasha, she was out there training not long ago when she had a hiatus, so that could be something you could see. I think I think it would be an aggressive approach. I think because of how you've seen, although the booking's been questionable, AEW are clearly trying to represent Joshi wrestling.
Sure.
You've got Yuka Sakazaki, you've got Hikaru Shida. Um, there's there's so many possibilities that is out there, but I hope it's not going to have the impact it's had in the UK. Um, I'd like to see them work closely with some people so you could have these big marquee matches maybe. I did think Noah, but obviously they're now owned by the company that's owning DDT. What was your thoughts on that, Pet? Like on that news that came out?
Repeat that.
So with the DDT and Noah, what was your
Mm,
thoughts on those like kind
yeah.
of merging?
I actually liked it. I liked it because I think Noah needs better distribution. I think DDT has like the third best distribution right now
Yep.
um, in Japan, and so that was big for them because the more Noah puts on a great product, but not a lot of people watch it. So the more eyes you can get on it through distribution rights, the better off they're going to be. That's number one. Number two, we got to start seeing some consolidation. We mentioned it before, um, but it's one of those things where there's just a lot going on in Japan right now, and with the world market putting their eyes on Japan to kind of be the next up and coming, and they're always been number two for a while, but now that like there's global pressures with WWE coming in for people to be able to compete on that level, we're starting to
Yep.
see people teaming up.
Okay. So obviously was going to do like a one more match sort of thing. I'm gonna flip the switch a little bit for you, and it can be how we can close out a bit like what we mentioned with like Brock, Bailey, Sasha, the people that you'd like to see go over there. So I'm
Mhm.
gonna fire you a couple of the names. You can just say so. It's their first show because with NXT UK they just had sporadic shows before the brand was up and running. I think that's how they'll do Japan. So you've got Asuka and Kairi Sane. Would you
Right.
have them in a tag match or would you have them in a singles?
If I was doing those two, I'd do tag.
Okay, who would you put them against?
If I was doing that, I would put them against. I'd like to bring in like Fujimoto and Sareee. I
Yeah.
think those are the two that I would like to see go against Asuka and Kairi.
Okay. So you've got Io Shirai,
Hmm.
who,
And she's an ace over there. She's a fan favorite. She's been
yeah,
the
she
goat
is.
for a long time. So you got to put her in a high profile match. I would imagine one of the four horsewomen. I would
Oh,
say Io versus Becky over there would be something. If you're establishing WWE Japan,
yeah.
that's a marquee matchup you'd want to see.
That'd be. Yeah, I want to see that now. Cheers. Kushida, obviously, if they
Sure.
do a
Hmm.
junior division or whatever, they've not
Got
done
it.
anything with him so far. It has to be Kushida. Who
Absolutely.
who are you going? I'm thinking Kushida Ricochet.
Sure. Yeah. Love that. Damn. Yeah, I love that. And I love him versus, and although he's technically not a junior heavyweight, you could make the case, Tommy End,
Yeah,
get Aleister Black out there. Those two back and forth, that would also be fantastic.
yeah, no, 100%. Shinsuke Nakamura. Well, actually, we'll leave that one till last. Akira Tozawa.
Okay. Oh, Tozawa. Man, he could work well with so many people. See, Tozawa is someone I would bring in Minoru for.
Yeah,
Working with the younger talent, but stiff kicks, get a good representation of strong style. I think Minoru would bring out a lot out of Tozawa.
okay. Now, with Shinsuke, I'll put my person out there first. It was somebody that everybody wanted to go to Japan. He signed with WWE. Shinsuke versus Walter.
Ooh, yeah, yeah. I mean, you don't got to convince me. Although I'll go Tyler Bate. Um,
Shinsuke Tyler.
yeah, but both work because the size element for Shinsuke would be a fun dynamic. So I really enjoy the Walter side. Tyler Bate, the dude's just a fucking superstar. I mean, he is so good. It's like
You, oh no, 100%. You put Tyler Bate in New Japan. He's the person people are calling the best in the world.
I agree. I agree with you.
I think whether it's Okada, whether it's Tanahashi, Naito, Omega, you put them against, he's the one that's going to blow people away.
Yes, I 100% on board with that. I think that dude is next level, and they really need to do something with him because they got money sitting right there. Just
Yeah,
go make him a star.
no, 100%. So, and lastly, to open with the last question, so you've got the club, you've got Styles, you've got Gallows and Anderson, maybe Balor. Who do you want in that Japan match against them?
Oh man,
Because I'm
it's a good one.
hoping, I'm hoping the embrace. I know Vince doesn't like stables, but that's such a big part of the culture in Japan, and it's something that
Huge.
I'd really like to see incorporated in NXT Japan.
I think they would have to go faction system at some point. It's tough for the tag team because you haven't. I'm trying to think like if they brought somebody over, who would it be? Like maybe if they could get like the North from Impact
Okay.
and get them over in like a Gaijin role,
Yeah.
kind of set them up, and then have like the old guard or the OC come back. I think that would be a fun mixture. Tag team wise, it's Japan's a little on the weaker side, and I know all Japan has a lot of good tag team wrestling right now. I just don't know them well enough
Yeah.
to be able to play into that. And on the New Japan side, they don't have anybody. I mean, I'd love to see Gorillas of Destiny, obviously, but we've seen that with the OC. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a little tougher for me. I would go outside the norm, and I'd go higher like the North and bring them
Bring in the
in.
Gaijins.
Bring in the guys.
Bring in the Gaijins. Nah, man. Well, brilliant. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what they'll do. I think the Performance Center would be the best way to go. They've been doing it in the UK, where when I spoke to Travis Banks as part of the WWE interview, he mentioned like how great it is having people like Shawn Michaels talk to him, and I think that learning curve would be um, invaluable. It'll just
Yeah.
be Japan's a harder market because there's just so much tradition and culture that comes to professional wrestling out there. But it's safe to say, like, if WWE wanted to, they've got the guys there that could just change the game essentially.
Yeah,
And
I'd agree.
it'd be interesting to see how that'll impact, say, New Japan that's selling out Tokyo Dome 2 days in a row, like with Wrestle Kingdom absolutely smashing out of the park. So yeah, before we go, let the listeners know where can they find you, what have you been have going on, any shows, any projects you've got coming up.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. First and foremost, thanks for having me on Kurt's Angle. Like we said at the beginning, long time coming, but I
Yeah.
really enjoy going back and forth with you. Puddle jumping's coming back, everybody. Just pay attention for that in
Yes.
the summertime. Um, but love what you're doing. Love what Ringsiders Pod is doing. You can find me on Twitter at Big Paws on a Pup, as well as at NPA Podcast. My podcast, No Particular Angle, every Wednesday is one half of the hashtag Queen and Pup Connection, going over anything and everything in pro wrestling, one topic at a time, with a slant towards stardom because everybody should be hashtag watching stardom. Um,
I was wondering how long it took for you to get a
get in there.
hashtag watch stardom. Yeah.
So, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no, great, mate. Drop me a message. We'll make sure we happen again. And like you said, we'll make sure puddle jumping comes um, this summer. Like we'll work on some stuff. We'll make sure it's happening. I've got a few ideas. I'm sure you have as well. And yeah, we'll have to get you back onto Kurt's Angle again when you've got some time. And if you ever need somebody for NPA, like just give me a shout and we'll make it happen.
Oh, 100%, man. You're definitely coming on. Um, yeah, we'll put that together and we'll go now. Or we'll go we'll figure out that on the timetable. You're a busy man, I'm a busy man, but more than happy to get you on. Just scheduling in the UK is always hard for me. You know,
Yeah.
it never seems to work out because either you gotta stay up later or I gotta wake up early, but we will absolutely be making that happen.
Yeah, no, 100%. So make sure you go follow JPQ. Make sure you go follow No Particular Angle. And all the guys that he's working with, like the Queen on a Wednesday, she's great. You can listen back to our review
Hey
of the
everybody,
Wednesday
just to
Night
let you all
Wars
know,
so
we're going to have
far.
this
Obviously,
upcoming
follow
show
myself
on
at
All Japan Pro Wrestling,
KJohansson93. You
and whether
can
or not
find me at
WWE
Kurt's
have
Angle
purchased them
Pod
and what that
and
could
at
mean for
Ringsiders Pod.
the
We've got quite a
upcoming
lot going
NXT
up. I've just
Japan.
had an interview with
You
Thunder
may hear me talk
Rosa.
about different
I'm working
things
on a
that you
lot
should
of
be able to
UK
see.
stuff with
However,
some
for some reason,
trainees coming
the
out.
audio was out of sync with the
And
video
some more
when I was
UK
watching it
based
back. It
wrestlers,
started
and
really
we've got a few
insane,
more
saying
NWA
you're
interviews coming over at
insane. So
Ringside's
here we are,
Pod.
just a little
Callum and
intro
Jamie
to
just
All
interviewed
Japan Pro
Joe
Wrestling in
Galley.
the background.
Make sure you check that out.
Hope you enjoy.
Thank you for watching.
Everybody, so thank you for sticking with Kurt's Angle. JPQ's no longer with me. As you can tell, sat somewhere different, new shirt, even got my glasses on today. I wanted to put on the end of this episode just the news that recently broke out regarding NXT Japan and things that could impact that. Obviously, first of all, it was announced that the owner of All Japan would be doing some training down at the WWE Performance Center, and I think that's something absolutely massive. The fact that they're breaking down these barriers, like what me and JPQ spoke about, they're breaking down these barriers of having people work with them, which we weren't too sure that there was going to be able to do. But yeah, Jun Akiyama is going to be a guest coach in the Performance Center in May. So that's one interesting development. And then shortly thereafter, it was being reported by several places online that WWE have actually made an offer to purchase All Japan Pro Wrestling. We mentioned earlier they failed to purchase Stardom, they failed to purchase NOAH. This could be third time the charm. And with All Japan, such a prestigious company, they've got such heritage and the fans are there. And they've got a few things that, if WWE did own it, I would like them to use. Like the Wrestle Carnival, which is a yearly tournament, absolutely fantastic. Make sure you check the 2021 out because the lineup is really good. It is really good. And yeah, so with that in mind, it could change the whole landscape of a potential NXT Japan. It could move that timescale even further forward. So in the end of this, I just wanted to break down like what that could mean for WWE, who they could have available if they did if they did own these contracts of some of the professional wrestlers, especially for those of you that may not be too familiar with All Japan Pro Wrestling. It's something that over the past year I've started preferring a lot more, hence the giant from the East, the Ishikawa t-shirt that I'm wearing at the moment. So yeah, to begin with, we'll start off with Ishikawa anyways. So Ishikawa, everybody in Japanese wrestling knows him, whether it's from his time in Big Japan, his time in DDT, or his time in All Japan, where he's been the Triple Crown champion. He's been a World Tag Team champion 4 times with Suwama as the Violent Giants, and again as JPQ mentioned, he said that All Japan have some really good tag teams, and these are the pinnacle. These are two. It's in the name. Two absolute giants. Two guys in the 40s. Like let's remember, like Japan, they wrestle. They can keep going forever. They do fight forever, essentially, and they'd be a fantastic addition. Ishikawa, obviously, like I said, Triple Crown champion, World Tag champion on 4 occasions. You've got a fantastic tag team there, or somebody with the name value of these big matches that he could have. He'd be a great name to have, and so would Suwama. Like Suwama, you could argue over the years he was the ace for All Japan, like a 6-time world champion, well the 6-time Triple Crown champion, the 4 reigns that he's had with Ishikawa, and then the one with Joe Doran. So with that, all of a sudden you've got 2 massive names from the Japan wrestling scene where was on about, like, will people want to leave these companies because of their loyalty? But if All Japan kind of get like consumed by WWE, and Akiyama is part of that lead in the NXT Japan stuff, then it's not really portraying, like, it could be absorbing a lot of the fans, and it's a bit similar to like what we discussed with Progress Wrestling. So although Progress is still going, who knows? All Japan may still do stuff, and it could be a very similar thing, or they may just want to absorb everything. Okay, so yeah, there's 2 massive stars you could have from the get go, and I mentioned Suwama being one of the aces. It could be said like the current ace is Kento Miyahara. He's the current Triple Crown champion. I think he's held it probably around 500 days at this point in time. It's his 4th reign. He's only 31 years old as well. First reign coming in 2016. Over the past 4 years, well, 3 and a bit years, he's really been solidifying himself as the All Japan guy. He loses the title to somebody, he'll win it back, or he loses the title, they lose it, he wins it back. And it's been like that over the past few years. And obviously, I mentioned the Champion Carnival. He won the 2019 one, so he won the most recent one as well. And Kento would be somebody fantastic. And really, we've discussed a lot about the female talents like Sareee, like Maya, that we could build the Joshi division around. Kento could be one of those aces that NXT Japan would be able to build around. He's got the look, and he's clearly, he knows how to be a leading guy in a big Japan company. So there's another one. The thing with All Japan as well, they've got, like some of us, they've got their international talent. So I say international, but Japan's his home. Joe Doran, okay, real Stan Hansen-like wrestler. He's from Chicago, Illinois, but he's best known for his All Japan work. And I was lucky to see both Ishikawa and Joe Doran have a match against each other live, and I also saw them both face Rampage Brown as well, which was 3 fantastic matches. But yeah, going back to Doran, apart from his 7-month stint, 6-month stint in WWE development back in 2010 for FCW, like he'd signed in the February, and I think he'd been released by the September. Not sure what went on there, but he immediately went back to All Japan. So essentially, from like 2007 to 2020, now we are. He's been, again, the big guys in Japan. He's been one of the big guys in professional wrestling over there, and he'd be a really good addition to NXT Japan. If he wanted to do anything in America, obviously he's had that brief stint in FCW, and yeah, again, Doran, he comes with that prestige. He's not as old as Ishikawa. He's 37, I think, but yeah, another Triple Crown champion that you'd have, and he's been a tag team champion as well. He's been with, again, Suwama. He's been with Kijimoto, somebody else that we mentioned with Wrestle-1. And it'd be really interesting. All Japan, they have more of, you could say they have quite an aging one, and Wrestle-1, they may have some of the younger guys, and I think that blend would be perfect. I think if they did manage to get those 2 companies, and maybe Ice Ribbon as well, that's some serious damage that NXT Japan could do. And I'd be really interested to see Joe Doran being in NXT Japan, being in NXT. Like, I'm already thinking of like these like War of the Worlds, like Worlds Collide, as WWE call it, with NXT and NXT UK. Had NXT Japan, you've got some great matches. Like again, I mentioned Volta going out there in the fantasy match, like against Nakamura. You could have Volta versus Dorin or Volta versus Ishikawa or Suwama. There's three fantastic choices there, and they've even got some of the more juniors, so people that could complement if Kushida went there. You've got Koji Iwamoto. He's one of the more younger guys. He's held the title a couple of times. He's the current All Asia champion as well. So if they did bring in these championships, the All Asia, that could incorporate having people from Korea, having people from China, everywhere coming as part of this NXT Japan brand, should we say. And then obviously the current All Japan World Junior Champion, Susumu Yokosuka, he'd be Hikaru Sato at the Korakuen Hall show during Wrestle Kingdom weekend. And not sure what had happened with his contract. I don't know his contract because he's currently working for Dragon Gate as well. So who knows regarding that? But they've got the roster there. You've got Yoshitatsu as well, obviously familiar with WWE. He's currently out there. You've got Tajiri, who's out there. And then you've got some more of the younger ones. You've got Shigehiro Iri, who's absolutely fantastic. He's currently teaming with Lucas Steele as well in the Corpse of God. Lucas Steele, I can't say a bad word about him. Absolutely fantastic. He's come up from the academy here in Hull with NGW. He's making a name for himself in the UK. And it was the show that Joe Dorin and Ishikawa was on. Ishikawa was, I like you, like we need to do something. He's got him over to All Japan, and now Lucas is absolutely killing it out there. He's going to be competing in the Champion Carnival 2020. So Lucas could be an option, whether that's doing Japan stuff in the faction with Erie or doing NXT UK stuff. It's only a matter of time before he gets picked up by a major player. You've got Akira Francesco as well from Italy. He's going over there on a regular basis. He could be an addition for NXT UK. He could be an addition for NXT Japan. And yeah, it just seems like I wanted to talk about this just because of how big it would be. Like All Japan are arguably the second player in the game in Japan. I think getting if they got Ice Ribbon, if they got All Japan Pro Wrestling, and whether or not they purchased Wrestle-1 or if Wrestle-1's actually just closing, that's still leaving a lot of talent there that can be scooped up by WWE. And yeah, where's next? Like, what are they going to do next? Are we going to see them looking in Australia and New Zealand, Canada or Mexico? Like, there's so many options that WWE could do, and I think it's only a matter of time. And I think the NXT Japan thing, this time next year, I wouldn't surprise me if there's been a show under that umbrella. Maybe not a company, but like I said, with NXT UK, they did the championship tournament. They did random little shows now and again. They had them on the NXT shows when there was across all the WWE live events. So there's a lot that could be said out there. And if they purchase All Japan but let Jun keep running it, then fantastic. But yeah, things are changing in Japan, and it's going a lot quicker. My opinion has just changed. Like me and JPQ was saying, we can't see people working with them. And now you've got the owner of All Japan going to be a guest coach in the Performance Center. You have the rumours of WWE making an offer to purchase All Japan. And I imagine that time in May when it's over there's going to be some serious discussions to try and get that deal over the line. So, yeah, that was everything. So make sure you, again, as I said before, make sure you give JPQ a follow. Him and Queen doing the No Particular Angle on every Wednesday. Make sure you follow myself. So at Kate Johansson 93. This is at Kate's Angle Pod. You can find me at Ringsiders Pod. We've just recorded a good Don't Even Get Me Started very video. We're interacting. You get to see our personalities a little bit more. And yeah, stay tuned because I've got quite a lot of exciting stuff coming, and I will keep you all updated with what's happening with NXT Japan. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.